The rain hadn't stopped in days. It was the kind of downpour that soaked through skin and spirit alike cold, relentless, and loud enough to drown out thought. Amara sat in the back of the resting jeep, staring out at the thick wall of green that bordered the muddy road ahead. Trees loomed like ancient watchers. Their leaves whispered among themselves, bending slightly though there was no breeze. She clutched a weather-worn notebook to her chest, her late brother Sameer's journal. Every page inside was filled with cryptic sketches, scattered words, and unsettling questions. It watches at dusk. The forest isn't empty. What did I hear under the roots? He had disappeared 6 months ago. No body. No goodbye. Just this journal and a location marked in red deep within the rainforest of Mansera, a jungle so remote and forgotten that even satellite maps blurred at its center. You sure about this, miss? The driver asked, hesitating at the broken path ahead. Locals say no one comes back from that part. I'm not coming back, Amara whispered, mostly to herself. Not until I find him. The driver turned pale. He muttered something in his native dialect, an old prayer, and handed her a flare gun. I won't go further. Take this, in case. In case you need light. She stepped out into the soft mud, boots sinking slightly with each step. The canopy above was so thick that daylight had dimmed to a permanent twilight. The jeep backed away slowly, its engine fading into the hiss of rain. And then silence. Total. Choking. Silence. Even the birds had stopped singing. The green enclosure within hours. The jungle had swallowed her. Amara was a trained botanist, but no textbook had prepared her for this. Every tree looked familiar, yet wrong. The bark seemed to breathe. Some branches twisted just a little too humanly. The deeper she went, the stranger it became. Her brother's journal had mentioned a clearing one where the air buzzes like it's alive. She followed the sketches carefully, matching symbols on tree trunks, but unease grew with every step. Somewhere in the distance, she began hearing it. The murmur, low and rhythmic, like someone whispering into a glass jar, too faint to make out. But constant. She stopped. Held her breath. It continued. Whispers. Coming from above. She looked up. There was nothing there. Just thick leaves and vines. Yet something watched her. Visions began by evening. Her flashlight began to flicker. The journal's pages had grown. DAMP. She sat under the twisted roots of an enormous tree and opened the last page. For the first time, she noticed a phrase scrawled in jagged writing, different from Sameer's usual penmanship. It wears your voice when it's ready. Suddenly, Amara. She froze. The voice was her brother's. Amara, you found me. She turned sharply. No one. Just the trees. Sameer. She called out, heart hammering. Silence again. Then behind her crunch, footsteps in wet leaves. Spun around, light flaring wildly. There was someone. A silhouette, not 10 feet away, unmoving, not breathing. She raised the light. The beam hit. A mirror. No, not a mirror. A body that looked exactly like her. Same face. Same boots. Same scar above the eyebrow. It tilted its head and smiled. Amara screamed. The copy vanished, and so it begins. Shaking and panicked, she ran blindly through the trees, branches clawing at her arms. The journal flew from her grip. Rain blurred her vision. When she finally stopped, gasping, the jungle was darker than ever. No path. No direction. No sound. Just her heart pounding. And whispers. Everywhere now. Not in one voice, but in many. Sameer's. Her own. Children. Old women. Hundreds of voices whispering beneath the canopy. Why did you leave me? Come deeper. There is no out. We're all here. We're you. Her. Flashlight died, and the forest smiled. Asterisk. The next morning came without sunlight. The jungle didn't allow it. Amara awoke beneath the gnarled roots of a tree that now seemed to breathe. The bark pulsed faintly like flesh, damp and warm, and as she stood, she noticed her boots were gone. No, not gone. They were placed neatly. In front of her, polished, mud wiped clean. She hadn't done it. Her breathing grew shallow. The whispers had faded overnight, but something heavier remained in the air, a stillness that weighed on the bones. She checked her backpack. The flare gun was still there. So was the compass. She took a deep breath and turned it toward north. It spun madly. No direction, just chaos. And then it stopped, pointing straight down. Echoes of the mind. She began walking again, guided now only by instinct and the memory of her brother's sketches. The forest floor seemed to change subtly with every step, like it was shifting beneath her, rearranging itself to mislead. Then she began hearing him again. Sameer, you said you'd never leave me. Amara spun. No one. I waited for so long. Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't leave you, she shouted. I looked for you. A child's laughter rang out behind her. Then silence. She ran. Vines lashed at her legs. Thorns bit into her skin. And the deeper she went, the more familiar the voices became. Her mother's, her father's, old friends, a teacher, a lover. All of them whispering things they had never said. Why didn't you save him? You were always the stronger one. You let him go alone. It's your fault. Her hands trembled. Her vision blurred. This wasn't just a forest. It was memory. And it was using hers against her. The Watcher's clearing. She stumbled upon the clearing Sameer had drawn. At the center stood a monolithic tree, twisted, blackened by time, rising like a tower among the greenery. It had no leaves. Just eyes, dozens, maybe hundreds. Glistening. Human-like, nestled in the bark, watching her. One blinked. She stepped back. The whispers surged. Welcome home. A low growl rumbled from behind the tree. Out stepped a figure, bent, thin, draped in shadows. Long hair, hollow face, and limbs that moved to FLU detail. It was Sameer, or at least something wearing Sameer's face. Sameer. Or the thing beneath. Amara, it said, voice dry like wind scraping over bone. She took a step forward. Sameer? He smiled. A broken thing. You should not have come, he whispered. It knows you now. She reached out, tears falling. Come with me. We can leave. His hand grabbed hers with violent strength. There's no leaving. She saw then his skin wasn't skin. It was bark. His fingers cracked like dry twigs. His eyes, once warm, now reflected the canopy like two black mirrors. Sameer's gone, he said in her voice now. I'm what remains. He released her hand and stepped back into the roots of the tree. His body dissolved into vines. And the tree smiled again. The descent. Amara collapsed, sobbing into the earth. The voices grew louder now. No longer whispers, screams. She grabbed the flare gun and shot it straight into the air. Light exploded across the canopy. For a moment, the forest hissed, recoiling from the flame, and then she saw them. Faces, dozens. Hundreds, pressed between leaves, growing from bark, staring from within flowers. All of them, people. All of them once human. Their mouths were open, screaming. Silently, Sameer's among them, frozen in bark. The flare fizzled. Darkness returned. Asterisk the madness below. Amara sat in silence, legs trembling, heart hammering in her ears. The forest seemed to breathe with her now, a rhythm she didn't remember learning, but one she couldn't stop matching. Like it was inside her. Or she inside it. Sameer's face was still fresh in her eyes. Twisted, empty, but aware. Sameer's gone. I'm what remains. His words repeated in her head like a mantra, cold, endless. She tried to stand, but her knees buckled. Something warm slid down her temple. Blood, Sweat. She couldn't tell anymore. Her grip tightened on the flare gun. She had one shot left, but against what? Burial grounds, the clearing now had no exit. Every path she'd come from was replaced by a wall of thorny, pulsing brush alive and watching. The jungle refused to let her backtrack. So she moved forward, toward the monolithic tree. Its trunk was larger than any she'd seen, wide enough to house a cathedral, blackened like charred bone. There was a hole, a tunnel maybe. A mouth, definitely. She stepped toward it. Inside it was cold, wet. The walls were ribbed like a throat. The sound of dripping water echoed off unseen stone. She descended. Deeper. The ground squished beneath her feet. It wasn't soil. It was flesh. The nest of echoes, somewhere beneath the jungle, time warped. Amara didn't know if she walked for minutes or hours. Her flashlight flickered. Her skin was covered in filth, sweat, and something slicker. Her mind drifted in and out of nightmares. She began hearing her own voice from ahead. I left him. I left him to die. And then Sameer's. You watched. And you drowned. You ran. No, she whispered. That's not true. That's not. But the truth unraveled inside her. She remembered that day again. The trek, the river, Sameer slipping. The current. She had reached for him, but not fast. Enough. She had paused. Just a second. Long enough. He was gone, and she had told herself for years. I tried. But the jungle knew better. The temple roots. She entered a chamber. Roots coiled around ancient stone columns that twisted like skeletal fingers. Vines crawling up, decayed carvings of gods with insect faces. In the center was an altar. And on it, a body. Sameer. Fresh, pale, eyes closed, not twisted like before, peaceful, as if asleep. She screamed and rushed forward, holding him. Sameer, wake up, please, wake up. His eyes fluttered open. He smiled and whispered, you brought me back. But the voice was not his. She pulled away, terrified. But the body sat up. Sameer, single quotes, spotty rose. Vines sprouting from his spine, wrapping around her arms. I needed your grief to find my way back, the voice said, now echoing from every root, every stone. You opened the door. The entity, it was never just the jungle. It was never just madness. There was something old here, older than the forest, older than memory. It fed on emotion. It thrived on regret. Sameer had become a vessel not possessed, but rewritten. His soul twisted into root and bark, offered to the entity below. And now it wanted Amara too. You carry so much pain, it whispered. So much guilt. Let me take it. Let me hollow you out. No, she screamed. I won't become like him. The vines tightened. You already are. The final flare. She reached for her belt, pulling the last flare. Pressed it against her chest, lit it. Flame burst between them, hot, wild, screaming against the black. The vines recoiled. Sameer's face contorted, the thing inside him shrieking. The walls cracked. Light filled the chamber, and Amara saw it, all of it. The true face of the jungle's god. Not beast, not man. A thing made of memory and mouths. 1,000 faces, all screaming, all gonset. Once human. All once alive. She turned and ran. Up the tunnel, through the black. The forest burned behind her. Surface again. She didn't know how long it took. But she made it to the surface, collapsed beside the monolithic tree. The clearing was silent, the jungle, watching, but it did not stop her. She stood one last time. And walked. Alone. Asterisk. Amara walked through the jungle. But the silence was wrong. No insects, no birds, not even the rustling of leaves. It was as if the entire forest had inhaled and refused to breathe out. She staggered forward, arms burned, clothes torn. The flare had scorched her shoulder, but the vines had let go. Sameer's face, his final expression, was burned into her skull. Not of pain, not of peace, of satisfaction, like the entity had gotten what it came for. She stumbled into a clearing, recognizing a trail from their original map. She was free, or so she thought. Home is not the end. It took rescue crews 3 days to find her. A helicopter had caught a signal from her emergency beacon. She was barely conscious, feverish, muttering things about gods beneath roots and a man with no eyes. They took her back to the city, a hospital, IV's psych evils. Jungle psychosis, they said, trauma response, grief hallucinations, delirium. Her story made the news for a week. Woman survives alone for 12 days in Amazonian forest. Sameer's body was never recovered. Amara told no one the truth because she didn't know if the truth had ever left the forest, fractures in the mind back in her apartment. The jungle remained Dot in dreams, yes, but also in waking life. She would find moss under her sink, leaves in the shower drain, footprints by her bedroom window bare, wet facing in. Her therapist said it was disassociation. Her psychiatrist upped her medication, but she saw vines when she blinked, heard his voice. When water ran, the worst was the mirror. Some nights, she'd stare and her reflection would tilt its head before she did. The whispers returned the entity. Hadn't been destroyed, she had freed it. Whatever it truly was, a parasitic god. An ancient consciousness, a curse bound to grief. It had used Sameer to reach her. And now it lived inside memory itself. She realized it one night when she heard her phone playing a recording. She hadn't touched it. She looked out. It was from the jungle. A recording Sameer had taken of her laughing weeks before their trip. But in the background, between her giggles, something whispered, "Bring her down. She's ready." She dropped the phone, but the sound didn't stop. The seed inside days passed. Then weeks out one morning, she woke up and found mud under her fingernails, but she hadn't left her room. Dot. She had dreams, always the jungle, always the temple, but worse now. She was walking through a world made of eyes. Every tree trunk blinked. Every leaf listened. The sky above was a lid, and she was inside an eternal jar of terror. Sameer would appear, smiling, asking, "Why are you still pretending you're not part of it now?" She would scream herself, awake Dot, but the screaming never felt like it came from her mouth, only from her chest. The radio incident one evening. During a storm, her radio turned on by itself. A voice she didn't recognize crackled through the static. They never leave the forest. They grow into it, and the forest grows into you. Then her name, clear, human, Amara. She unplugged the radio. Dot. It kept playing, roots beneath the floor. She began noticing something growing beneath the wooden floorboards in her hallway. Dark threads. Black roots. Dot. She tore up the wood one night. What she saw made her vomit out the roots. Were pulsing. Dot. Breathing. Dot. They smelled like Sameer's shirt and the temple like mildew and blood and forgotten things. She burned the entire hallway, but the next morning, the roots had returned. The final retreat. Amara left her apartment, sold everything. She booked a cabin in the cold north, far from jungles, far from anything. Green. Snow surrounded her. Silence. It worked. For a while, she began writing everything she could remember from the jumble, journaling, sketching, trying to trap the entity on paper, as if it needed attention to exist, but it was already inside her. The reflection blinks again one morning. In the icy glass of her cabin's window, she saw something. Her reflection. Except the eyes weren't hers. They were Sameer's. She blinked. It did not. "It's your turn now," it said. "To become the memory." Asterisk, the forest never forgets. The cold cabin didn't protect Amara. It only slowed the creeping of the forest inside her. Every day. Her body felt more foreign, bones aching, skin dry, something twitching behind her eyes. Her nose blood stopped once. She called it stress, but she knew. The entity had followed her. Not in footsteps or shadows, but in memory. blood and grief. Sameer had been the vessel. Now she was. The return she woke up one morning already standing. The snow outside was gone, replaced by a carpet of moss, rich and black, stretching endlessly. The door was no longer a door, it was an archway of bone, wrapped in vines. She stepped through, barefoot, branches parted. She was back in the jungle. But this was not Earth's jungle anymore. This was its memory. Its dream. And she was walking inside it. The fire within Amara wandered for what felt like days. She saw trees that bled. Birds made of stitched mouths. A river that reflected moments from her life. All wrong. Sameer laughing at her funeral. Her mother holding a baby with no face. She screamed and screamed until she lost her voice, and then she came upon the temple again, still standing, more beautiful than ever. And waiting. The choice inside. Sameer stood where she last saw him, but his body was not the same. He was wrapped in vines, growing out of the floor. His eyes, those empty sockets, now bloomed with flowers. He smiled, calm. "You came back," he whispered. "It wants to sleep. And it can until you lie down too." She fell to her knees. "Why me?" She cried. "Because you survived. Because you carry the wound. Because it needs memory to breathe and you remember everything. Surrender or fire." She had two things, her fear and her flare. She raised the flare. The temple shuddered. The flowers in Sameer's eyes wilted. "No," he said. "You'll burn it all." She struck the flare. Light exploded in the dark. Vines shrieked an impossible sound. Like bones scraping on stars. The ground cracked. The entity screamed, not from pain, but confusion. "Why would you destroy what remembers you?" "Because I want to forget," she thought. She threw the flare at the roots beneath Sameer's feet. They ignited. So did the temple. So did the jungle. Ashes and echoes. The last thing she saw was Sameer smiling, truly smiling, a real one. "Thank you," he mouthed. Then he vanished in flame. 1 year later, Amara woke in a hospital again. Real this time. A passing research team had found her collapsed in Peru, near the edge of the jungle. Burned, dehydrated, but alive. The forest had let her go. Back home, she wrote everything down. Every detail, every scream, every hallucination. And then she burned it all. She deleted recordings, tore up sketches, erased memories until she could almost convince herself it had never happened. The final whisper sometimes, on rainy nights, when the power cuts out and everything is quiet. She swears she can hear vines brushing against the windows, and once she found a leaf on her kitchen table. It was wet. And warm. And whispering. The end.